taken. It's 9:42. Let's turn to live conversation about the news on the websites and on the pages with Aisha Hazarika of Times Radio and The Commentator. Hello, Aisha.
Hello.
Christopher Hope is Chief Political Correspondent at The Telegraph. Welcome back, Chris.
Morning, Paddy.
And Kate Hardcastle is the retail consultant who has helped us many a time and oft. Hello, Kate.
Hello, good morning.
Can I start with you? Sunday Times, page 17. We're going to need a bigger bin, Kate.
We're going to need some bigger bins, apparently, because we are creaking with the amount of packaging we need to shove in there because we're all getting so much more in terms of online deliveries. And many of you might have experienced, actually, not all of it is packed that well. We're not really looking at a very lean methodology when it comes to how we receive goods. But I think this could be one of retail's greatest moments. How about, instead of just getting bigger bins to deal with the amass, how about we actually get better systems in place, including the labelling on our goods, because it drives me to distraction. Consumers want to try the best. Retailers are supplying lots of goods, all with different labels, all with different systems in, and consumers just don't, a lot of the time, have the understanding of what it means. And I think, for instance, you can see a green dot on a packaging. It's got two interlocking arrows. It makes sense that you have seen something green with arrows that you understand as recycling. That could just mean that that company has actually contributed to some recycling fund somewhere. So let's get better systems in place.
We're going to need a bigger bin. Boom in wheelie whoppers to cope with web packaging. Aisha, our COVID fuel enthusiasm for online shopping is generating so much rubbish that sales of supersized dustbins are booming. Do the Hazarikas contribute? Have you boosted the deliveries?
Yes, I can give you a global exclusive that the Hazarika household has absolutely made a very heroic contribution to this. But it is mad, the amount of packaging. Sometimes as well, you'll just get something that's really small, like a wee product, but it's in like a massive cardboard box. But I've just moved to South London and there's lots of super big bins and they're all actually on the pavement as well. So sometimes I do feel it's like invasion of the giant wheelie bin.
Now, Kate, you're speaking to us from Leeds raising this. Christopher, I hear you nodding virtually.
Most definitely, Paddy. My worry about this story, of course, is the bin is green. Our recycling bins are black. I mean, part of the problem around the country is we have different coloured bins for different coloured recycling. I think that should be sorted out. Also, in this article, it talks about how Bromley Council revealed it sent 87% of its paper and cardboard to be incinerated. So there's a capacity issue. Kate's totally correct. We've got to cut down on this recycling. It drives us bananas. And also these bins on the pavement in Aisha's neighbourhood, trying and pushing a wheelchair around a bin on the pavement is a nightmare. A nightmare.
They look like Daleks as well when you've had a few. So I think they're quite intimidating.
Well, does that mean the wheelie bins can't go upstairs, Aisha? Let's hope so. Let's turn to you next, Aisha. We'll change the paper and change the subject. The front page of The Observer. Now, this is Priti Patel in a dispute with the Prime Minister, says the paper.
Yeah, this is a really interesting story. And of course, the country's still reeling about the murder of Sarah Everard and this epidemic of violence against women. And lots of things are being looked at. We know that there's an inquiry into the Met, which Dame Louise Casey is heading up. But lots of female MPs across the House have been pushing to get more legislation, particularly around harassment, like street harassment, like sort of the equivalent of curb crawling, harassing young girls on the street, that kind of thing, because lots of people do believe that there is a continuum of behavior. There's a spectrum of behavior which sort of starts with low-level street harassment and can end up somewhere much darker. So Priti Patel has been wanting to push this, according to The Observer, but the Prime Minister is pushing back against it. He believes, according to The Observer, that there's abundant existing legislation and that this is just all about, wolf whistling and catcalling and that kind of thing. But I actually think he's made a mistake here and should listen to women, because lots of women polled, including schoolgirls, have got really high rates of saying to people that they are harassed on the street on quite a daily basis. So I think if we are serious about this, that the Prime Minister should think again about this.
That's the front page of The Observer, a putative difference of opinion between the Home Secretary and the Prime Minister. Christopher Hope, your own newspaper, Ladies and Gentlemen, on page 1.
Yes, this is a ruling by British Airways. They won't call passengers ladies and gentlemen. They'll just, they won't say what they're called. I did wonder what you do call passengers, perhaps when you get onto a plane, when we go travelling, perhaps like the PM was off to go on to Marbella, perhaps he was called something on his flight. But do you say, people, sit down and shut up? I don't know what you say to people if you can't say ladies and gentlemen. To me, that's always part of the nobility of travel, that you're treated in a grown-up way, in a polite way by British Airways. But if they stop calling you ladies and gentlemen, then I'm not sure what's next, really. This is all done because they want to encourage diversity and inclusion. But I think it might alarm passengers more than do that.
Kate, do you like to be called a lady?
Not worried in the slightest. As long as I'm safe on that flight, that's my primary concern. And I think it's about service all the way. I don't mind what address is used, but having travelled recently with all the compliance that's needed for COVID and everything else, it is really, really challenging for anyone. And I think that goes for the colleagues combined. So if that's what they want to put in place and that makes other people feel welcome, concentrate on the safety, concentrate on the people who are paying the wages, the customers.
Aisha, where are you on ladies and gentlemen?
Chris, I don't know what era you're thinking of, this glamorous era of travel. I mean, get like a sort of Mad Men kind of style where you get you barely get a peanut on like a flight these days. It's like being herded through like cattle. So I'm afraid I'm with Kate. I mean, I don't really care about being called lady or gentleman. I just would like the experience of travel to be less traumatic than it is.
Yes, Christopher. There you are. You're travelling with Alan Wicker in your mind.
Well, I'm
people are smoking on the flight.
Are you saying you don't get dressed up to go travelling?
Would you dress up to get travelling? Yes. I feel like I should wear a hazmat suit if I'm going to get on a plane these days.
Christopher puts on a tie to meet people off the plane, and he doesn't look like a driver either. So that's your front page of your Sunday Telegraph. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going gender neutral. That's what Christopher's picking. Kate Hardcastle, another one from you. The business and money section of the same paper. Page 7, empty shelves put Christmas advertising blitz under threat.
Well, this is it. The ad industry has been hurt. Everything's cyclical, isn't it? So those shortages on the shelves, the challenges that it creates also has a knock-on effect to the ad industry. And we might be looking at some of those iconic Christmas adverts just not required this year. Those advertisements might not be there because the retailers just don't need to push goods they don't have on the shelves. And I think it's very much a case that with an ad industry that was hurt by 1.8 billion last year, it's a real hit. And we've also seen that this is an industry that's transitioning. People are perhaps looking to digital forms of advertising instead. But the ad agency had said that they were trying to recover. They'd hoped that this was going to be a change in pace and that they were going to have a positive Christmas. And that was the case for retail, industry, so many more looking to rebuild at a point now where they've been challenged by shortages, empty shelves and lorry driver crisis.
Christopher, Mail on Sunday, no shortage of turkeys at the Tory conference.
Yes, this is Oliver Dowden, the party chairman, has made clear at the conference that he is going to buy his turkey early, about now, 2 months early, and freeze it. I think this is quite an extreme approach towards dealing with the possible shortage in turkeys this Christmas because of issues with butchers and the rest of it. But I wondered if you were doing the same, Paddy.
Well, I've got a very small freezer. I'm very strict about rotating through the freezer, but so I couldn't get a big bird in there. Kate, do you think there will be stockpiling of turkeys in advance of the big day?
It's happening. It's happening. People are out there. I even heard people were just having Christmas meals early. The customers were just bringing it forward a few months. It's not my favourite time of year being in retail, so I'm not into the idea of celebrating 1 minute earlier than I need to.
Aisha?
I just feel like I'm just having my flashbacks of Christmas last year, where it's like Christmas is going ahead, cut to me spending Christmas Day by myself at home, basically, because I couldn't go and see my family. I mean, I think people are quite worried about it. Last year was so tough, and I do think people are really worried about it. And I'm afraid if like a senior politician has basically said, look, I'm already sort of getting in early with my turkey, everyone's going to do the same. So I think we're probably going to have more panic buying around turkeys. As long as there's Bailey's left, I'm relaxed.
But panic buying breeds panic buying, doesn't it? As soon as you see things on social media, that's the element. It's a noise that we create with the panic buying that creates it.
People want to know the solution to panic buying. If panic buying begets panic buying, Kate, you've had a lifetime in retail. Do we know what the kryptonite is? What stops panic buying?
The reassurance that goods are on the shelf, the reassurance of alternatives, but that's a big thing to take on, because you've got to remember that in some instances there is actually the need to sell as well. So organisations don't want to cease all trade. They want to get the balance right. And I think actually, in credit to the retailers that did the Feed the Nation campaign last year, that when the grocers came together, that was a sensible actual message to put out, and I think something similar is required here.
You are listening to the News Review on BH with Kate Hardcastle, the retail consultant, Christopher Hope of The Telegraph, and Aisha Hazarika, the broadcaster and turkey hater. Mail on the Sunday Times, Aisha, is red Tory Johnsonism marching to a landslide, says Tim Shipman.
This is a really interesting long read by Tim Shipman. He's moved from being the political editor to being the chief political commentator. It's a really interesting long read following a Conservative Party conference, and it outlines some of the tensions that lie ahead for the Prime Minister, because this is going to be quite a difficult political term. There's lots of storm clouds gathering. There's a couple of interesting things to look out for. Look, the mood was very bullish at Conservative Party conference, which Chris and I both attended, but he just points out some interesting things for your listeners to look out for. First of all, tensions brewing between two rivals, Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak, over more cuts to the overseas aid budget. They are seen as being sort of rivalrous in terms of one day maybe taking over from Boris Johnson. That's why he promoted Liz Truss. But another line which is very, very interesting is that apparently the kind of strategy that is being given to Tory MPs to sort of calm them down, particularly because of this cost of living crisis, is, look, the government's planning to build up a war chest to cut taxes just before the election.
Chris, this article also says that the current wage policy of this Prime Minister could be described as Bennite.
Yes, that's a Tony Benn reference. Yeah, the big worry I've got about this government is tax. I think they've lost the dividing line which the Tories have always had with Labour on tax. You can't trust them on tax because they've broken their manifesto by pushing up tax in April on national insurance. That is a problem. We're seeing it in the polls already, but the two parties are now equally trusted on tax. I think there's a big problem here going forward into the election when it happens, maybe 2023, 2024 for Boris Johnson. He's trying to square off the red Tories, the blue wall seats, while not really annoying those in the south. I think there's a problem here. He's riding two horses.
Kate Hardcastle, The Observer. It was John who wanted a divorce, says who?
Who said goodbye and who said hello? That is what's covered here in The Observer, page 3. And Paul McCartney says, Sir Paul, it wasn't him. It was John, actually, and goes into this quite detailed explanation of the fact that, yes, there was tension in the band, but it was John that wanted to go on and do something different. It was a bit of a rule breaker anyway. He had ideas of what he wanted to do with his music, and therefore it was him that didn't want the band to go ahead. It's obviously something that's weighted Sir Paul for quite some time. But interestingly, a quite sweet part of this, which might be worth Radio 4 looking into, is apparently Lennon and McCartney were also script writers. They created a little short play. I'd quite like to hear it come to life, which was, you could play it out. It's called Pilchard, apparently.
Well, firstly, there's not enough discussion of pilchards, and secondly, if you've unearthed a drama script from Lennon and McCartney, you're right. That should definitely be aired. The final word to you, Christopher. You're going to tell us about pizza in number 10.
Yes, Boris Johnson's got a problem with pizza. Apparently, he can't get it fast enough into his office. When he orders it, it's held up by police at the gate, and obviously goes cold. I wonder if that's a good diet. If I had a police at my gate and they stopped any food getting to me, I might lose more weight. It'd be marvellous, actually.
Are you sure? Are you sympathetic at the pizza hold up at the gates of Downing Street?
I'm with Chris. I think I could have some armed guards on my front door to sort of stop the takeaways getting into the house. But it's interesting though, because there's another story in the paper saying that Boris Johnson saying we all need to take responsibility for our health and stop being so fat to get waiting lists down. But obviously he wants his pizza and he wants to eat it as well.
I've heard that slogan. Thank you all very much indeed for coming on Parade this morning and taking us through the serious and the lighter-hearted things that you've spotted. Aisha Hazarika, Christopher Hope and Kate Hardcastle. Thank you all.